The crystal moon palace shined like a diamond under the twin suns of Xyrus Prime, its towers reaching toward the sky as if trying to touch the stars. Inside, thousands of alien nobles filled the grand arena, their voices echoing through the hall. Banners of every species waved and the air buzzed with excitement. Today was the start of the galactic trial, a contest where the strongest warriors from every world came to prove their honor. At the center of it all sat Princess Zerai, daughter of the High Emperor of the Orion Empire. Her beauty was known across the stars, golden skin that shimmered like sunlight, silver hair that flowed like silk, and eyes sharp as blades. But she was not just beautiful, she was proud, arrogant, and cruel. As she sat upon her crystal throne, she laughed softly. "Who dares to challenge the Empire this time?" Her advisor bowed. "A human, Your Highness." Her laughter filled the room, bright and cold. "A human? They still exist?" All around her, the nobles began to whisper. Some laughed, others looked confused. Humans were long forgotten, thought to be weak and extinct. No one believed such a small and simple species could stand against the warriors of the Orion Empire. But then the human stepped forward. His name was Eli Grant. Dressed in simple black training clothes, no armor, no weapon except a steel staff. His eyes were calm, steady, deep blue like the ocean. He looked so normal. The princess leaned forward, still smiling. "Do you know where you are, human?" "Yes," Eli said quietly. "In your court, Princess Zerai." "Then you know the risk," she smirked. "If you lose, you die. If you win—" She laughed suddenly. "If this human wins, I'll be his wife forever." The hall exploded with laughter. The nobles clapped, shouted, and cheered, mocking the human. But Eli didn't smile. He only said softly, "You have my word. I will hold you to yours." A single deep gong shook the floor. The match began. The alien general, a giant reptilian beast with metallic scales, charged forward. Each step made the ground tremble. His blade hissed through the air, faster than lightning, but Eli didn't move. He waited until the last moment, then tilted his body slightly. Letting the blade miss by an inch, the crowd gasped. The alien struck again and again. Each attack was powerful, deadly, but Eli moved like water. Calm and smooth, he dodged, turned, and countered with his staff. Strikes so fast the eye could barely follow. A spark of blue energy flashed each time he hit. The giant's armor began to crack. The alien roared, confused, his heavy swings missing again and again. Zerai's smile faded, her eyes narrowed. "Impossible," she whispered. Her father, the emperor, frowned deeply. His hand gripped the throne arm. "What is this human doing?" Then in one final motion, Eli spun, his staff glowing bright, and struck the general's chest. The sound was like thunder. The alien flew backward. Crashing into the arena wall, the entire palace fell silent. Dust filled the air. The gong sounded again. The match was over. Eli stood still, breathing softly. Not proud, not boastful, just quiet strength. The alien general didn't rise, defeated, unconscious. The human had won. Princess Zerai stared, unable to speak. Her golden eyes wide, her heart pounded strangely in her chest. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel in control. Eli looked at her, his voice calm but sharp. "You said forever, Princess. Was that a promise or just a joke?" The crowd went wild, shouting and roaring, some in disbelief, others in awe. "Human! Human! Human!" they chanted. Zerai stood slowly, trying to hide her trembling hands. "He must have cheated," she said under her breath. But she knew it was not true. The ancient arena stones glowed blue. They only shone when truth and honor ruled the fight. Her father rose, his voice cold. "The vow was made before the assembly. The law binds you." "Princess," Zerai's face turned pale. "No. It was a joke." But the golden mark on her wrist began to glow faintly, the symbol of the eternal promise, the oldest law of their people. Eli bowed slightly, his blue eyes calm. "I do not seek a crown, Your Majesty, only the truth. And the truth is that humans are not what you think." He turned and walked away as the crowd erupted again, leaving the princess frozen on her throne, heart racing, mind spinning, and high above. In the shadows of the ceiling, unseen watchers whispered in ancient tongues, "The humans have awakened." And the stars will tremble once more. The palace halls were silent that night. The laughter and cheers of the day had vanished like smoke. Only the echo of that one moment remained. The moment a human had defeated the Empire's greatest warrior. Princess Zerai sat alone in her chamber, the soft light of twin moons falling across her silver hair. Her hands trembled as she stared at the golden mark now glowing faintly on her wrist. The mark of the eternal promise, an ancient law that no royal could break. She whispered to herself, "It was a joke. I didn't mean it." But the mark pulsed gently as if it could hear her words, reminding her it was real. Her maid entered quietly, bowing low. "Your Highness, the council requests your presence in the Hall of Vows." Sarai's eyes turned cold. "They dare summon me?" "It's about the human," the maid said softly. "The law demands recognition of your vow." Sarai stood up sharply, her anger hiding her fear. Her long gown shimmered as she walked, each step echoing through the marble corridor. When she entered the hall, the emperor and his council waited, their eyes heavy with judgment. "The law is clear," said the High Chancellor. "You swore before the assembly, before the sacred lights. Your word cannot be taken back. It was a mockery." Sarai shouted, "He's a human, a lower species." The emperor's voice thundered, "A royal vow is never mockery, daughter." She looked at her father, eyes wide. "You cannot make me honor this." "The galaxy saw it," the emperor interrupted. "If we break the law, the empire's honor dies." Sarai felt her breath catch. Her throat burned with fury and shame. Around her, the nobles whispered, some hiding laughter, others murmuring with disgust. "The proud princess," one said softly, "bound to a human," her fists clenched tightly. "I will not marry that thing," she hissed. But deep inside, another voice spoke, the one she tried to ignore, the one that remembered his calm eyes, his quiet strength, the way he didn't boast after victory. Later that night, she stormed into the garden. The air was cool, the stars glowing like silver dust, and there, under a tree, sat Eli the human. He looked peaceful, staring at the night sky, as if the chaos of the palace didn't matter. "You should be gone," she said sharply. He turned his head slowly. "Why?" "The law says I must stay." She glared at him. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Eli's eyes met hers calmly. "I understand better than you think, princess." Sarai took a step closer, anger flashing. "You made me a fool in front of my people." He didn't move, didn't even raise his voice. "I didn't make you a fool. You did that when you mocked what you didn't understand." Her breath caught. Her pride stung like fire. "You dare." "I dare nothing," he said quietly. "I only fight for truth." "Not pride." For a moment neither spoke. The sound of the wind rustled through the trees. The stars reflected in the pond beside them. Eli looked up again. "You think I wanted this?" he said softly. "To force you into something? I didn't come to win a wife. I came to remind your people what humans were, what we still are." His words confused her. She had expected arrogance, not this strange calm. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Eli stood, his shadow long in the moonlight. "Your empire erased our history, called us weak, but once, humans fought beside your ancestors side by side, until betrayal ended it all." She froze. "That's impossible." "Then why," he said gently, "do your sacred laws still recognize a human's vow?" Sarai's lips parted, but no words came. She turned away, her chest tight with emotion she didn't understand. "You speak lies," she said weakly, but her voice had no strength. When she reached her chamber again, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The glowing mark on her wrist seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. For the first time, she wondered if fate was playing a cruel joke, or giving her a warning. That night, sleep did not come easily. Her dreams were filled with strange visions, ancient battlefields, blazing ships, and a human warrior standing beside a figure that looked like her, holding the same glowing mark. She woke up trembling, her heart racing, whispering into the darkness, "Who are you, Eli Grant?" Outside her window, the winds carried the distant sound of drums from the lower city. The people were already whispering about the human who defeated the Empire's champion. And somewhere deep inside the palace, Eli sat quietly, eyes closed, feeling the same energy pulsing through his hand. The mark of the vow connected them, glowing faintly under his skin. He opened his eyes slowly and whispered to himself, "The stars remember even if they don't." The next morning, the entire palace was in chaos. News of the princess's vow to a human had spread like fire across the stars. From the silver towers of Orion Prime to the mining moons of Dracos, every news channel repeated the same unbelievable headline: "The alien princess bound to a human by eternal law." Princess Sarai could barely step outside her room without hearing whispers. She mocked him. "Now the vow binds her," one servant whispered. "She deserves it," said another. The sound made her heart pound with fury. Yet a small part of her felt something deeper: shame. confusion and fear. In the High Council Hall, the Emperor stood before his daughter. Around them sat the council, now old, powerful beings with glowing eyes and cold hearts. The High Chancellor spoke, his voice calm but sharp. The Eternal Promise Code was created during the First Galactic War. It is sacred, binding across time. No one, not even royalty, can escape it. Zerai tried to speak, but her father raised a hand. Enough, Zerai. The law stands, and so does your vow. Her voice broke. You would force me to be tied to a human. You forced yourself, he said coldly. You mocked before the assembly, and the stars heard your words. Her lips trembled. I didn't mean it. The Emperor's eyes softened for a moment. Meaning does not matter to the stars, daughter. Only truth does. Then he turned toward Eli, who stood quietly beside the guards. He was calm as ever, simple in his black clothes. His hands were folded behind his back. No fear in his face. Human, the Emperor said. Do you claim the vow? Eli looked straight into his eyes. I didn't come here for a vow. I came to prove that humans still stand with honor. But if she is bound, I will not break what she spoke. The words hit Zerai like a stone. He wasn't boasting or celebrating. He was simply accepting what fate placed in front of him. The council members murmured among themselves. Strange, said one. Most would beg or boast. But he stands like a warrior. Or like a fool, another muttered. The High Chancellor raised his hand. Then it is sealed. The eternal promise binds both parties until death. As he spoke, the marks on their wrists glowed, spreading light across their arms. The golden and blue energy twisted together, forming a faint ring that only they could feel. Zerai gasped, her body shaking. What is happening? The bond awakens, said the Chancellor. You share a link now, through energy, emotion, and truth. When one feels pain, the other will sense it. When one lies, the other will know. Her heart raced in panic. No, this can't be. But Eli remained calm, lowering his head slightly. Then let it be truth, he said softly. Later, when the council was dismissed, Zerai stormed out of the hall. Her steps echoed as she walked down the long corridor, tears of rage forming in her eyes. She wanted to hate him, she tried to. But the more she thought about him, the more that strange energy inside her wrist pulsed. In the garden again, Eli stood silently. Watching the sunrise, she marched up to him, her voice sharp. Do you enjoy this? Watching me suffer? Eli looked at her with calm eyes. No. Then why not refuse the vow? I can't, he said simply. Not because I want you, but because the bond isn't mine alone to break. She stared at him, confused. You speak like it's destiny. Maybe it is, he said, turning his gaze to the sky. Maybe the universe doesn't make mistakes, only lessons. Zerai folded her arms, trying to hold on to her pride. You're arrogant for a human. He smiled slightly. And you're soft-hearted for a princess who pretends not to care. Her eyes widened. How dare you? But before she could finish, her wrist burned, the mark glowing. Eli winced too, feeling the same pain. They both froze, staring at their glowing marks. What was that? She whispered. The vow, Eli said, his voice low. It reacts when one feels anger toward the other. It punishes both. So we can't even hate each other now, she said bitterly. He smiled faintly. Maybe that's the point. She turned away, her heart thundering, but for the first time, she didn't feel hatred. She felt something far more dangerous, something she couldn't name. That night, Zerai sat on her balcony, staring at the stars, her mind filled with questions. Who was this human, really? Why did the vow's energy feel ancient, like it belonged to something older than the empire itself? In another wing of the palace, Eli sat quietly in meditation. His blue eyes glowed faintly, and the same energy flowed through him. He whispered softly, So the legends were true. The promise still lives. Far beyond the palace walls in the darkness of space, a shadowed figure watched a hologram of the vow's light. The humans have returned, the figure hissed. And if the bond awakens again, the old war will rise once more. The days that followed were tense inside the Crystal Moon Palace. Every corridor whispered about the human and the vow that bound him to the princess. Some called it a curse, others called it fate. But for Princess Zerai, it felt like a chain she couldn't escape. She avoided Eli as much as she could, ignoring him during court sessions and refusing to speak at dinner. But the bond between them didn't care about distance. When she grew angry, her wrist burned. When she felt sad, her heart raced and somewhere far away. He felt it too. On the fourth day, the emperor ordered something that shocked everyone. "The vow is sacred," he said to the court. "If it binds them, they must learn to exist together." Gasps filled the room. Sarai's eyes widened. "Father, you can't mean you will spend time with him," the emperor declared. "You will study, dine, and travel together until the bond stabilizes." Sarai wanted to protest, but the emperor's glare silenced her. She clenched her fists. "Yes, Father," she said through gritted teeth. That afternoon, she found herself walking beside Eli through the royal gardens. The silence between them was heavy. She refused to look at him, but every step she took matched his. The bond seemed to pull them into rhythm. Eli spoke first, his voice calm. "You hate this more than anything, don't you?" She kept her gaze straight. "You think too highly of yourself." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but your wrist glows every time you lie." She looked down quickly. And indeed, a faint light pulsed on her wrist. She turned away, embarrassed. "That doesn't mean anything." "It means you're not honest with yourself," he said softly. The words cut deeper than she wanted to admit. As they reached the edge of the garden, a shadow moved in the bushes. Eli's eyes narrowed. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her aside just as a blast of plasma energy hit the tree where she had stood. The explosion threw dust and leaves into the air. "Guards!" she shouted, but before they could arrive, 3 cloaked assassins appeared from the mist. Their blades glowing red. Eli pushed her behind him. "Stay close," he said calmly. One assassin leapt at him, but Eli moved faster, impossibly faster. He spun his staff, blocking the strike and countering with a single blow that knocked the attacker unconscious. Another came from the left, swinging a twin blade. Eli caught it midair and twisted, disarming him with one fluid motion. The last assassin tried to run, but Eli's staff glowed faintly blue, and a pulse of energy sent the man flying backward. When the guards finally arrived, all 3 attackers were down. The captain bowed to the princess. "Are you hurt, Your Highness?" Sarai shook her head slowly, still staring at Eli. "No." "He saved me." Eli looked at her calmly, breathing evenly, as if fighting 3 assassins was nothing new. "You're safe now," he said quietly. The guards dragged the attackers away, and Eli turned to leave, but Sarai's voice stopped him. "Wait," she said softly. He paused. Looking over his shoulder, she hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." He smiled slightly. "You don't have to thank me, Princess, but you risked your life," she said. He shrugged. "I gave my word to protect what's bound to me." Her heart beat faster, and she didn't know why. Later that night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, calm, strong, his movements graceful yet powerful, and that strange blue light, glowing faintly around him like energy from another world. She walked to her balcony, the night air cool against her skin. "Who are you, Eli?" she whispered in another chamber. Eli sat cross-legged, meditating. The same light flowed around him. His body seemed to hum with quiet energy. He opened his eyes and looked at his glowing mark. "The connection grows stronger," he murmured. "She feels it too." The next morning, Sarai called her advisor. "Find out everything you can about humans," she ordered. The advisor hesitated. "Princess, their records were erased after the Great War." "Then search the forbidden archives," she said, her voice firm. "I want to know why they disappeared." Hours later, the advisor returned pale and trembling. "Your Highness, the files are sealed under imperial order, but I found a fragment." He handed her a hollow tablet. A single line glowed across the screen. Humans were not destroyed. They vanished after creating the Vanguard gene. Sarai frowned. "Vanguard gene? What is that?" "The records say it was a power source. Pure energy born from life itself," the advisor whispered. "It was banned after it destroyed an entire fleet." The princess looked out the window where Eli was training silently in the courtyard. Blue light flowed around him in soft waves. Her voice trembled. "That light. It's the same as in the record." The truth hit her hard. The human she mocked, the man bound to her by fate, might carry within him a power the galaxy once feared. And far away, in the dark space beyond the Empire's borders, a fleet stirred. A deep voice echoed through the shadows. "The Vanguard gene has returned, and with it, the humans will rise again." The palace awoke under heavy tension. The banners of the Empire hung still in the air. No wind dared move them. Since the attack in the garden, The Emperor's court whispered that the human was dangerous, that the old powers of Earth might be returning. And now the Emperor had decided Eli must face a new challenge, one that would prove if he was truly worthy of the vow that bound him to the princess. In the royal chamber, Princess Zerai stood before her father, her hands trembling. "Father, you can't make him do this. He saved my life." The Emperor's voice was cold. "He also brought shame upon our name. The galaxy questions our bloodline. The trial of the vow will answer them. But he'll die," she whispered. "Then he is not the one the stars chose," the Emperor replied. Turning away, the news spread fast. By dawn, the arena was filled again, thousands waiting to see if the human could survive the trial of truth, the deadliest test of body and soul. Eli entered quietly, wearing the same simple clothes. His calm steps echoed across the ground. When the crowd saw him, they jeered and laughed. "He won once by luck," someone shouted. "He won't leave alive this time." From her balcony, Zerai watched, her heart pounding painfully. Her wrist still glowed faintly, the mark of their bond pulsing with each heartbeat. She could feel his calm through it, like soft waves reaching her soul. The Chancellor's voice boomed across the arena. "3 trials await the beast, the storm, and the mind. Only the true and pure can survive." And a heavy gate opened with a crash, and a massive creature stepped out, its scales dark as night, eyes burning with green fire, a Drath behemoth. A monster bred to destroy armies. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Zerai's nails dug into the railing. "No one has ever beaten that beast," she whispered. But Eli stood his ground, calm and steady. The creature roared and charged, the ground shaking with every step. But the human didn't move until the very last moment. He rolled aside, grabbed a shard of fallen metal, and leapt onto the creature's back. His body glowing faintly blue, the audience fell silent. The blue light spread from his hands into the creature's skin. The monster froze, its eyes wide, before collapsing with a thunderous crash. The first trial was over in seconds. The Chancellor's voice trembled slightly. "First trial. Passed." Eli bowed his head, then turned toward the second gate. From it came a swirling storm of energy, a living tempest trapped in crystal rings, arcs of lightning flashing across the arena floor. Eli walked straight into it. The energy tore at his clothes, burning his skin. But he didn't stop. Zerai gasped, feeling pain shoot through her wrist. Their bond reacting. "Stop, please," she whispered. Tears forming in her eyes, but Eli kept walking, the blue light around him growing brighter. His voice echoed through the storm, calm and steady. "Pain means I'm alive, and being alive means I still have purpose." The storm screamed louder, but slowly its power dimmed, pulled inward by the glow in his hands, until only silence remained. The second trial was complete. The Chancellor's voice broke. "Second trial. Passed." Even the Emperor leaned forward, unease crossing his face for the first time. The third gate opened, and darkness spilled out. Not a creature, not energy, but silence, the silence of the trial of the mind. Eli stepped forward and vanished into the dark. Inside that shadow world, his own memories appeared. Earth burning, cities falling, the screams of people he once called family. The reason humans vanished long ago. A voice whispered around him. "You failed them once. You'll fail again." But Eli clenched his fists, his blue eyes glowing. "No, I carry them with me." Outside, Zerai fell to her knees, clutching her wrist, the light from their bond flashing wildly. She could feel his struggle, his fear, his pain, and something inside her heart cracked. "Please," she whispered, "come back." Moments later, the darkness shattered. Eli stepped out, his body weak but his eyes bright with fire. He had passed the final trial. The crowd was silent, too stunned to speak, until one voice shouted, "He lives!" And then cheers filled the sky. Zerai ran down from her balcony, ignoring protocol, rushing into the arena. When she reached him, Eli nearly collapsed. She caught him, holding him tightly, tears running down her face. "You fool," she whispered. "Why didn't you stop?" He smiled weakly. "Because you asked me not to die." Her heart pounded faster, their bond glowing so bright it filled the arena with light. The Emperor watched from above, his expression unreadable. "The human carries the light of the ancients," the Chancellor said softly. "The Vanguard gene is real," and as the blue and gold light surrounded them, high above the arena, in the dark reaches of space, fleets began to move. The old enemies of humanity had seen the signal, and the galaxy would never be the same again. For 3 days after the trial, the palace stayed silent, no music, no laughter, only whispers of fear and awe. The human had survived the impossible. The vow between him and the princess now glowed like a living flame, proof of something greater than law or magic. Princess Zerai spent those nights by Eli's side. Watching him rest, his body was weak, his skin bruised. But that strange blue light never left him. She sat quietly, whispering, "Why do you keep risking your life?" He opened his eyes slightly and smiled. "Because someone has to remind this galaxy that humans never stop trying." Those words stayed in her mind long after he fell asleep. But peace didn't last on the 4th night. Alarms rang across the capital. Explosions shook the towers, and the sky outside turned red with fire. The Empire's defense grid failed in minutes. A shadow fell across the moon as enemy warships appeared from deep space. The Emperor rushed into the command chamber, shouting, "Who dares invade the Empire?" An officer trembled. "Your Majesty, it's not any known fleet." The markings matched the Zeldrath Dominion. At that name, even the oldest council members froze. The Zeldrath were legends, monsters from the ancient wars, a race that once tried to erase humanity from the stars. If they had returned, it meant one thing. They had sensed the reawakening of the Vanguard gene. The Emperor turned to his daughter, his voice low and heavy. "They're coming for him." Zerai's heart dropped. "For Eli?" He nodded grimly. The bond's energy lit up across the galactic net. "They know humanity lives again." Without hesitation, she ran to Eli's chamber. He was already awake, standing by the window, watching the burning sky. "You knew this would happen," she said softly. Eli nodded. "They always come when the light returns." "Then we'll fight them," she said. "You're not alone." He looked at her with a faint smile. "You were my enemy once, and now I'll die beside you if I must," she said firmly. Moments later, the palace trembled again. The Dominion's ships began dropping pods into the city, releasing troops, dark armored creatures with glowing red eyes. The Empire's soldiers fought bravely, but the enemy's weapons tore through their shields like paper. Eli and Zerai ran to the command platform. When they reached it, a giant explosion tore open the hall. Throwing guards aside, from the smoke stepped a massive figure, 7 feet tall, covered in black armor with a voice that sounded like thunder. "So the human lives," the creature growled. "The last of your kind." Eli stood between the monster and the princess, gripping his staff. "Last or not, I'm still here," he said. The creature laughed. "Then die like the rest of your race did," it charged. The ground cracking under its steps, Eli blocked the first strike. But the power behind it was massive. His arms shook, his bones screamed, yet he didn't fall. Zerai raised her hand, firing her plasma blade at the creature's back. It turned toward her, roaring, and Eli used that moment to strike. Blue light bursting from his weapon. The blast sent both of them flying. The creature hit the wall, stunned but not dead. Zerai crawled to Eli. "You're bleeding." He smiled faintly. "I've been worse." Their bond glowed brighter now, gold and blue light mixing. The energy spread around them like a living shield. The Dominion troops tried to fire, but their shots bounced off the light. "What is this?" Zerai gasped. "The vow," Eli whispered. "It's not a curse, it's a key." The Emperor appeared with reinforcements, shouting orders, but when he saw the two standing in the light, his voice stopped. "By the stars, they've become one," he whispered. Eli raised his hand, and the blue light surged outward like a wave, tearing through the Dominion soldiers. Their ships above started to fall, systems burning as if something invisible struck their cores. Zerai felt the power too. It flowed through her body, warm and endless, not pain but unity. For the first time she understood. The vow wasn't punishment, it was balance. Human and alien life combined. Something ancient and beautiful. When the last Dominion ship fell, silence covered the battlefield. The city was in ruins but alive. Eli stood breathing heavily, his hand still glowing faintly. Zerai stepped closer, touching his face gently. "You saved us again." He smiled weakly. "Not me, us." Behind them, the Emperor watched in quiet awe. He bowed his head. "The humans are not what we thought," he said softly. "They are the light we lost long ago." But far beyond the system, in a deep black sector of space, something darker stirred. A voice echoed through the void. "So, the Vanguard awakens once more. The war isn't over." Back in the palace, Eli looked at the stars, his expression calm but heavy. Zerai stood beside him. They'll come again, won't they? He nodded slowly. Yes, and when they do, we'll be ready. The wind blew softly through the shattered windows, carrying the scent of smoke and steel. The vow mark on their wrists glowed softly together, two hearts bound not by chance but destiny. And for the first time, the galaxy began to whisper not in fear but in hope. The war had ended, but peace did not return. The smoke still rose from the burning cities. The skies of Orion Prime were dark with the remains of enemy ships. People whispered Eli's name like a legend now, the human who came from nowhere and saved the Empire. Yet deep inside the palace, Princess Zerai felt only silence. She stood beside the balcony where Eli once stood, staring at the same stars, her golden eyes heavy with worry. The bond mark on her wrist still glowed softly, warm and alive, but something inside her told her that it would not glow forever. Eli had been missing for 3 days. He left quietly after the final battle, leaving behind only his staff and a short message. I will end this war before it begins again. The Emperor had sent fleets to find him, but they returned with nothing. The outer systems had gone dark. As if swallowed by shadows, Zerai refused to sleep. She spent her nights searching through star maps and old archives. She remembered the ancient text that spoke of the Vanguard gene, power strong enough to stop entire armies, but dangerous enough to destroy its own host. Now she understood what Eli planned. He wasn't running away, he was going to sacrifice himself. When she couldn't bear it anymore, she called for her ship, ignoring every warning from her guards. Track his energy, she ordered. The vow connects us. I can still feel him. The royal ship broke through the clouds, following a faint blue trail across the black sea of stars. Hours passed in silence until the ship reached a dead system, once home to an ancient human colony, now just ruins and dust, and there, floating in the dark near a dying star, she saw him. Eli stood on a broken platform, surrounded by energy crystals. The blue light around him burned brighter than ever, his body glowing like fire. Eli, she cried through the comm, stop this. He turned slowly, his eyes soft but sad. You shouldn't have come. She stepped closer, her heart pounding. You can't do this alone. He shook his head. The Dominion's flagship still lives, hidden behind the sun, its gathering power to strike again. If I don't stop it now, it will destroy everything. She grabbed his arm, tears falling down her cheeks. Then let me help you. He smiled gently. You already have. Her voice broke. I won't lose you. You won't, he said quietly. You'll carry me. The bond mark on their wrists flared suddenly, the golden and blue light mixing into one brilliant white glow. The energy around them hummed. Alive and wild, Eli, she whispered. What are you doing? He looked at her with calm eyes. The vow gave us power because it joined two hearts from different worlds. That's what they feared, unity, not war, but understanding. The dying star pulsed violently. The enemy flagship appeared from behind it, massive. Dark and burning with red fire, Eli turned to face it, his hand glowing brighter than ever. I have one last promise to keep, he said. Protect them, princess. Before she could speak, the light burst outward, swallowing the sky. The explosion was silent but endless. Waves of pure blue and gold light spread across the system, consuming the Dominion fleet. The darkness, the ruins, everything. Zerai screamed his name, her tears vanishing in the blinding glow. When the light finally faded, only stillness remained. Her ship floated alone in the wreckage, and she fell to her knees, clutching her glowing wrist, whispering, You promised forever. But then faintly the mark pulsed. A voice echoed in her heart, soft and calm. I said forever, didn't I? Her breath caught. Eli! The light in her wrist grew stronger, wrapping her hand in warmth. Yes, the voice said, not in body, but in bond. She closed her eyes, smiling through tears. Then stay with me, always, the voice whispered. Months passed, the Empire began to rebuild, and the story of the human and the alien princess spread across the stars. They called it The Promise Eternal, a story of unity that ended centuries of hatred. Zerai became empress soon after, and though she ruled with power, her heart stayed gentle, guided by a quiet presence that never left her. Whenever she stood under the twin suns, she could feel him. Sometimes she would whisper softly, The stars remember us, and the wind would answer in his voice. They always will. Years later, travelers from distant worlds would visit the great statue in the heart of the capital, a sculpture of a human and an alien princess standing side by side. Hands joined, their vow mark shining eternal light. And every child who saw it would ask, "Did the human really come back?" And the elders would smile and say, "He never left." Because when humans make a promise, they keep it, even beyond the stars. The camera would slowly pull back, showing the shining empire now filled with humans and aliens living as one. Above it all, two glowing lights drifted across the night sky. One gold, one blue, forever entwined. The legend had ended. But the promise lived on. Humanity never dies. It only returns stronger.